Struggling to draw eyes that actually look alive on your paper? Whether your eyes turn out flat, uneven, or just off, you are not alone. Today, I'm showing you how to draw better eyes with pen step by step so you can finally get the shape, depth, and emotion right.
And if you stick around, I've got some tips that could make all the difference in taking your eye drawings to the next level. So with that said, let's jump right in.
I'll start with the outline. I'm going to draw the construction line for my eye. I normally start with a straight line. Right. The straight line, once again, this is based on whatever position the eye is, right? If the eye looks like it is slanted, you have to draw it in a slanted format. But if the eye is straight ahead, right, you have to do it in a straight format, right? So now, with that said, I'm going to begin drawing the outline. So firstly, this is just a raw sketch. Well, bear in mind, when you are doing this raw sketch, right, do your every best to draw the outline as light as possible. Do not put pressure on the pencil, because if you do that, once again, even though you're even using a soft pencil, it will make it much more visible, right? Hence difficult to clean in that sense, or difficult to erase. So bear in mind, when you are doing and you are using a soft pencil, do it as light as possible. Also, you don't want your drawing to look messy too as well. Right, so this is just a quick outline of what it will look, right? And then this is the external. I'm just going inside to where the pupil would be at. Okay, so I'm going to start with the iris, right? I need to make sure that it is closer to the edge. So once again, you're just drawing the outline, right? So you need to make sure that, it is close when it comes to accuracy. That's why you always need a form of construction lines to help you when it like grades or construction lines, right? Which I've covered in my other video. But yes, when you want to do realism, you need to ensure that proportions are really good, right? So that it actually looks like what you are drawing. So this is what the iris would look like. Now I'm about to focus on the pupil, right? So as you can see, once again, you need something to show you pinpoint where you would have the pupil. You cannot just start putting on the pupil unless you have the necessary skills to do that. But since you are just starting, if you are just starting drawing, you need to measure the distance, right? So I'll measure the distance. So from my left to my right over here, and from my top to my down, need to make sure that the distance is at least good. So I can put it this way, right? And over here, from my right to my left, the distance is a little bit big. So you measure the distance from here to here. See that it's a bit big, so I can put it here. And then I just draw my pupil over here. Alright, so these are just the points for me to connect my pupil. Once again, doing it as light as possible with your 2B pencil. Don't dip in. Don't put pressure on the paper, or else the outline will stick. It will be difficult to erase. Okay, I also left something important, the highlights, right? So I saw that, you see, while erasing, you can see that it is quick to erase over here. Now, the highlight, right? I can see that there's a highlight here. So I'm just going to replicate that. Do the exact shape of the highlight. You just need to make sure that it looks as similar as possible. You don't need to be really perfect when doing this, because you will be shading either ways. But you just need to make sure that it looks really similar. Once again, not perfect. You don't need it to be perfect. So far as it looks as close, right, as what you are saying. And then the second highlight too as well. I see that it's close to the pupil, so make it make one here. You can see that. See, most eyes you have something like that, right? That's what I'm trying to replicate here. Just a representation of what it would look like. Once again, since you're just starting drawing, good advice: draw what you actually see, not what you think you see, right? What you see on the picture, every eyes are different, just like how unique every humans are. So you need to draw replicating the uniqueness of each individual and their attributes, right? So I'm drawing what I see, once again, as lightly as possible. Not too much pressure on the pencil. It doesn't need to be perfect, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. Just as close as possible. That's all. That's all. You are not a computer, so you can't replicate every single detail, right? Inspiring artists do, but that's a whole different level. But for now, just do as much as possible as you can. All right. So I'm just adding minor details too as well, from what I see on the picture, carefully. I'm doing all this so that shading will be much easy. I can know where to shade or what to shade on, right? And where to leave when it comes to shading, or shading lightly on. This tutorial is with pen, so you need to make sure that you do not have too much mistakes, because once again, you can't erase with pen. I brought this one a little bit too close to the edge, so let me just give it a space up. Try something here. Something here. Just giving it a little bit space between. Right, so these are some good details I've added. When it comes to the iris, the pupil, right? The eye is the window, right, of your portrait. So if you do not do it properly, the rest of your portrait wouldn't look good. Time will be wasted, and you would have to stop at some point, right? We don't want to do that mistake, so we have to do our best to replicate it as close as possible. So over here you see that I'm trying to imitate the highlight again, the space where the highlight will be at, so that when I am shading, I know where to shade, right? So now I'm not shade over this one, right? Gonna do similar too. Okay, so you can see that I have highlights here, I have highlights here, I have the pupil here, right? Highlight, right? And yeah, and various details, right? Unique to the eye itself, as you can see over here. Now that I'm good with this, right? There is something that I need to do, right? Just to make sure that I don't make a huge mistake. And that will be the line over here. Check this out. So I'm trying to make sure that I draw a thin line close to the iris or the cornea. Right, that gives the inner layer of the eye. And voila, you can see it here, right? And to replicate that over here too. Slowly. Whatever I can see as close as possible. This is just to make various, once again, pinpoints for shading. I do similar here too. Right, so you can see that there is a mistake here. Right, because it needs to connect with this one. Right, it has to connect with this one, not the other one. So that's why I brought it up, that always draw with a lighter pencil so it's easy for you to erase. Right, don't use harder, mostly use softer pencils when you are doing your outline, so it's easy for you to erase and you won't dirty your work. So now this connects to this, the right point. And voila. We have kind of finished with the important part of the eye. We also need to make sure that this connection matches the way the eye is looking, or what matches the action of the eye. Right? What do I mean? Well, looking on the drawing, you can see that the eye is looking this way, right? So you have to do it in a way that the eye is looking this way. You don't want to make a mistake, which when shading, it won't look like what it's supposed to look on the image you are using. Also, we found out that there is also another form of highlight over here which we are replicating. Light one. Right here. You see. And voila, the eyes seem to be looking this side now. Right. And then we are done with the first step. So now you can decide to continue with the shading. Start with the shading actually. You can decide to start with shading because you put in important stuffs over here for the first step, or you can decide to do the whole outline and shade. It all depends on your own choice. But to me, I just want to see things start looking as real as possible immediately, right? So I mostly love to start shading, so that at least I know where I am at when it comes to the way my drawing looks. So that's what I will do right now. Normally when I'm using big pen for this tutorial, when I start, I make sure that I have the ink flowing through. So if you see me mostly using this is mostly in my scratch pad just to make sure that it is working, so that I wouldn't have to do that on this, because right now I'm going to start shading. But always remember, when you are shading, know that you are not just going to force your pen on the paper, right? That is not the right way. You need to shade light first. Eventually, using pen is not something you can easily control, right? So you need to be very careful, right? You need to be very careful when using it, because pen is not something you can easily control, like how pencil is. Another thing is you can't erase with pen, right? Or you can't easily erase with pen. So on the image, I see that there's a line across this, so that's why you can see that the line is in the pupil. So you try and shade as lightly as possible, right? First step. And then now you can darken it a little bit more. Go with the flow as to how the shape is going. Don't just do it like this. Just like how the shape is going. And voila. You can see the highlight here. And there is darker layers around it. Gives it definition. I always start with the pupil because I'm comfortable to start with that. I see it as the darkest spot, so I know that I won't make mistakes right when shading. It doesn't mean that I will just jump straight and start going as dark as possible. I start lightly and then eventually darker. Okay, now I'm going to do a nice light shade right around the pupil. This is another tricky part, so please be careful with this part. We are going according to the flow of how it should look like. If you want to give your drawing a form of a 3D dimension, always remember you are sculpting, right? You are not just shading. You are building, you are not just shading, right? So you don't do it with just straight lines. You take your time and go with the flow, right? Now, when I say the flow, check this out. I can see that the iris has this type of format. You can see this straight line. Yes. So as light as possible, I'm doing it similar. Slowly, with various form of hashes. Right? Slowly. And light, very light. I see that over here, to give you the 3D format, I have to do it like this, right? Like this. right? So I'm gonna follow that same format again. Around the details I made, you see this detail? Yes, I need to make sure that it's not disturbing that detail. Right, so slowly and lightly, you gotta do that. I see that the thing looks like this for this side. Looks like this, so I'll just go by that. You witness that I'm shading around the details I made, right? That's why I said you always need to start with the outline so that you can know the position where to shade and where not to shade as well. I'm almost done. Still going by the flow of the way my shade is and what I'm seeing on the image itself. All right. Okay. Also, yeah, so this is as good as it looks right now. You can see that I went by the flow and I gave it a little bit of a 3D format. So if you have reached here, give yourself a pat on your back. So now that I've done that, I'm going to make it even more bit defined, right? So check this out. I see that there is eyelashes, right, popping out within the highlight. So I'll just give it a similar representation as well on my drawing in the highlight, right, that I'm saying. Now I'm gonna darken, keep on shading, but this time I'm darkening it a little bit. So I started light and now I'm deciding to go a little bit even dark. Right, once again shading around even the littlest highlight I made. Just to provide details. See shadows of the eyelashes, so I'll just put it there around the inside the highlight, so I'll just do that. See, darkening it a little bit. Still trying to be as light as possible, even though I'm darkening, right? Drawing is patience. Right? You don't have to, you should not rush it. If you want to go realistic, to try your best not to rush it up. Alright. Starting, you don't need to be perfect. As far as it looks like what you are drawing, saving. That's the goal, right? To make sure it looks like what you are drawing. when you climb up the ladder, when it comes to releasing, you can mainly focus on that. But for now, just make sure that your proportions are as good as it can be, looking like the reference you are using. So as you can see, I'm shading around the highlights. Gently. See that over here, it's a little bit darker, so I'm just doing the same implementation. Following the flow of my previous layer. I see that since the eye is pointing this side, you need to also give it the same flow. So as well. So it won't look like it is looking at you. But it's watching the other side eye. Well, as you can see, the higher I go, the more darker it is. Why? Because of the eyebrows and the shadow pointing, so it's a little bit darker here. Right, so while I also keep on lightly shading around the highlights, and even a little bit inside the highlights, right? Remember, draw what you see once again, not what you think you see. So when you see the highlight, yes, it's a highlight, it's made. Sometimes it is made to be shaded as well, but not as similar as what you shade outside the highlight, very lightly when it comes to the highlights. Right? So that it just gives a representation of what it's supposed to. Try your best not to shade too dark. Yeah, I know it is tempting, but try your very best not to shade too dark. Okay, I'll get back to the pupil and its features, but before that, I'm also going to shade over here too as well. But as you can see here, it's not just white, right? You can see that it is a little bit brownish, right? So that means that there is still shade on this part of the eye. So we're just going to implement that. So very light, you just do 7. Follow the flow of where it is leading you to. So you can see it's giving this type of effect. So you just follow that flow in a very, very light format. See, immediately you put pressure on your pen, it becomes darker. So let's do our best not to make any mistake on doing that. Very, very light. You can see that over here the flow is going like this. So you just do the same format. And remember the highlight we kind of created. When we get closer to where the eyebrow is, it tends to become even darker, right? So that's why the highlight is there, because the light is also pointing. So you're going with the same flow over here. You just need to make sure that this is darker than what the highlight is showing, right? The highlight must be lighter. Outside that, it's darker. Still around the highlight, I'm shading a little bit much darker. So that it gives a definition. Now back to the iris. Still darkening places without the highlight. And also trying to give you the impression that it's looking somewhere else, not looking at me, right? Okay, so now I'm going to this detail. Similar to what I did with the details around here. Just need to make sure that this detail, even though it is shaded, not too dark. very light. Try also not to, I do my best not to touch the edge. So that, it just gives me more control. And also I follow the flow once again, go by the flow of the eye. Don't just shade like this, no. Just go by the flow, gently, lightly. We also give a similar implication. What I'm saying on my reference page and my reference page. So like that. Still lightly. Strand. Right. Strand. Right. I mostly do it like this. Strand. Alright, but not too dark. Very light. So I just do it similar. Yeah, very light. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. It's a practice. But you won't be able to get it immediately at the first time. You are not alone. Just need to take time. Strand. Alright, so it's closer to this there. Just give it a little bit. Dark strands round. Because once again, you are trying to build. You are trying to give it a form of definition. So get some dark strands around some of them. Even though it's visible. So at least you can see where they are meeting. So it's light. Alright. Yeah. As I said, the more you shade lightly, the more you will be able to control what you are seeing. Right? So if you're not sure, just shade lightly around them. Just gives it a representation. Good one too. So now over here you also do similar like that. The highlights, even though it's a highlight, just try not to, even though it's a highlight, you don't leave it totally white until you see that it is totally white. If you see that there is a little bit, it's not totally white, right? You just give it a little bit shade. And where it needs darker definition, you give it a darker definition so that you can tell the viewer or whoever is seeing your drawing that this is the highlight. Alright. Once again, closer to the eyebrows, the eyelashes, sorry, there is shadows. So you just do similar. Give it an implementation, a representation of shadows. Alright. And see that there is shadows of eyelashes showing, so just do something, just show something. So if you're showing shadows of eyelashes, bye. That light over here too, you see that there's a darker shade here, so careful and just give it a representation too as well. So you start lightly, you darken it a little bit. Bear in mind, you need to be careful. You need to make sure that this is different. The pupil is different from what you are darkening, so that it won't confuse whoever is seeing this eye that this is going into that, right? So even though you darken it up, make sure that it's not as dark as the pupil. It gives a representation of shadow. Do your very best to define what you are drawing. So eyelashes, 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 shadow of eyelashes rather, in a sense. All right, and now you do it the other way too. Make sure you go light, then eventually you can go dark. Start with light, lighter strands. It's going by the flow, and remember it's going by the flow over here. See that in this highlight, it's not as shaded as this highlight. So you just do it similar like that, but try not to be as too shaded as the other highlight. Right? This is way lighter. So you have to go very light. Very light. I feel like that is alright. Right. Now, shadow of the eyelashes. the highlights here also have a defined format, so you have to make sure that it's giving that format to us as well. It has to be defined so that it won't be all over the place, right? Shade in between as light as possible. There's a slight mistake over here, but we can leave it as it is. So once again, the goal is not to make it perfect, but to let it have its own resemblance as enough. His resemblance with the reference that you're using. Bear in mind, you are not a computer, so you cannot exactly replicate what you are drawing. But you can try to make sure that it at least looks similar and good to what you are drawing. What am I doing? I am shading around this highlight over here so that I give a definition to as well. So that's why I'm adding some darker. So when you give darker layers in contrast to the white layer or the lighter layers, it provides a form of definition in a sense. Doesn't mean go too dark, but alright, so more and more I'm just darkening in between the highlights to give it definition, around and in between the highlights to give it definition. Okay, now you can see that it's all coming together. All right, over here, it's all coming together. It's still giving it an implementation of the shadows of the eyelashes. Okay. So now I'm gonna move to the other side of the eye. Gonna focus back at the edge because I'm not done yet. So just once again lightly shading this part. Lightly shading this part, and then I have to do something similar here. The skin. Remember, this is very white. This is very white. So you would have to do your very best to shade around it. Give it a darker. First start lighter and eventually you can shade over it a little bit darker so it gives it definition. I'll do similar here. And shade around it going by the flow. And so I'm doing exactly that. I will start a light shade and then darkening it up a little bit. Okay. As you can see, I've shaded around the highlight because this is very light. Alright, so technically you don't need to shade in and the highlight at all based on how it is appearing. Just to make sure that I shade a little bit more darker around it. Yep. Then let's not forget there's another layer here. Go by the flow, remember that. So now that I've done that, the same flow, just making sure that I give it a little bit of a 3D format. Alright, so I'm going and using this way to pop the eye out a little bit more. Alright, so it won't look flat. Doing it this way, as you can see, like this. Now I'm just also focusing on this part, just giving it an implementation. See if there's a line drawn across. Do your very best not to actually draw the line, but shade, yes, shade. Don't draw a thick line, just shade that line in that sense. Later you would know that even though you see a line, it's not actually a line, but rather a shadows that make up that line, right? Where two different parts meet together, form shadows, and that made up line with light, right? So practice to shade around it instead of rather drawing a straight line saying that is a line. I see at the edge, I see that it needs a little bit darker shading, so I'm just giving it that as well. I'm building, not just shading, I'm building layers upon layers on top of layers. So yep, as you can see, things are kind of getting together. All right, now I can try out the eyelashes. Now, when it comes to the eyelashes, it's a bit tricky. You see, especially when you're doing it realistically. But since we are just starting, this is what I would really advise for us to do. It's just strands of hair, right? But you need to go according to the direction of what you are seeing on the reference image. Right, so firstly, honestly, I advise that you start light, right, so that you won't make any mistake. So you can see it like this. Like this. So I'm just going according to the way it looks on the image. So now I'm gradually going to change the direction. Gonna change the direction now to this way. It is like this, it goes this way, like this, goes this way, going like that, even though it's that way. And then similar, do it like this. like this. Right. But even before that, right, let's draw the outline, because since we just starting, it's best we know what we are doing so that we wouldn't go ahead of ourselves and draw the eyelashes higher than where it's supposed to go. Right, so I'm just giving it a nice implementation. I'll do it like that. Draw the outline again. One. I don't need to draw each single strand of hair. My pen will do that. I just need to know where they are going as a whole. Okay. Alright. So you can see, yeah, you're doing similar down here too, right? So as you can see that it is going down this way, so you need to just implement that too as well. Same thing too. Right. Now, down here too, you can see that we have lashes too. So you just do similar strands. You don't need to draw the strands once again. Just implementation of the flow, right? You can see that there are strands here like that. So there will be something like that popping out. So this side, the side, right? Well, like this. And this way. All right. Also, you need to put the lines above the lashes. Just to implement the fold of the skins, right? The skin. Especially when the eye is open. Remember, you always need a form of construction line to help you. Especially with grades. Grades will be your best friend when you are starting to draw, because it will help you pinpoint where each part is. So at the moment, I'm just doing with what my eyes see, but I would advise that you use grids or a helping layout so that it will guide you to put your features, right? It will guide you to put your features of the reference you are using, to pinpoint them. Because at the moment, I'm just using freehand to do that. And you can even see that even it is a struggle in a sense. But with something like grids, it will be easy for you to pinpoint where to put your outlines. Okay. So, here we are. We've just given it a nice implementation. I can go even further and try the eyebrow too as well. See that there's distance here. So I'll just follow the distance, pinpoint the distance. Alright, so it passes the pupil, it goes up here a little bit. Let's bring it down so that you can see that too as well. Just creating outlines to show where the eyebrows will be. Seem to be alright, like this. Alright. Like that. This. Increase it a little bit. Alright, and then do something similar up. This is just the outline, so can be a little bit flexible. Right. Are you seeing how things are forming up now? Yes. Okay. So back to shading the eyelashes, right? Following the loop of my outline, giving it strands, right? Giving the eyelashes, but it's basically filled with strands. But also, I'm also trying to do a form of cross hatching as well. That's not only about this. If you want to give it a 3D format, you need to ensure that you're doing exactly what you are seeing on the image, right? So in the image, you can see that it's also going this way and it's doing this way, going this way and doing this way. So I'm just doing exactly that. All right.
So before we move on to the eyebrows, if you're into art or you want to level up your drawings, right, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and also share this video with a friend who might be having issues with drawing the eyes. I've also got new videos coming soon, so please stick around. With that said, let's jump right into the eyebrows. Okay, so now one last ingredient, right, to complete the eye, and that is the eyebrows. So now when we talk about the eyebrows, right, drawing the eyebrows, firstly I start with, as usual, light shade. The eyebrows represent thin fine strokes, right, similar to the eyelashes, right? So you always need to know how to bring it up according to the way the face is positioned. Alright, so as you can see, like this and like that, right? So I'm going according to the flow of the skin. I'm not gonna draw the whole skin around it. For now, I'll just focus on the eyebrows. Right. So now, as I said, we're calling it single strands, similar to the eyelashes. So you do similar like that when you are adding the second layer. Bear in mind, you have to follow the flow of the lashes, right, that you see on the reference. Right. So on the reference, I'm seeing it like this, so I'm just going by what I'm seeing. Slowly. The more you grow your skills, the more time you would have to spend on the drawing. And even with the lashes, you would now have to take your time to go even more detail. But since we are just this is for mainly for the beginners, I'm just going to quickly show the strands, right, according to the flow of the skin. Remember, don't just shade like this when you're doing the eyelashes. That's not how to do it. Like, it's similar to when you're doing the eyebrows. Sorry, you have to follow the strands of the hair. Right. So you put in the second layer. You can see, right? Yep. Now going to the detail. Giving a little bit more detail. I see that on the reference paper, on the reference image, it's scaled this side, so that's what I'm doing. Replicating similar. Right. Oh. So I'm gonna darken it even further. Add more layers of strands.
That's what I'm going to do now. Darken it even further. Yeah, it's a bit blurry, so I'm not gonna go too much on this side. It's more of general shade and what I can basically see from the image. Going by the flow, building it steadily. Alright. Back. Just try to close it up, don't let the hair go all over the place. And yeah, so that's more of what I'll put on the eyebrows. Eventually, you will learn how to go even more detailed. Spend more time on it for each strand so that it won't look different from the image. But this gives a nice representation. The image I'm drawing right now. Alright. So as you can see, yes, here's the eyebrow. Correct. So yeah, here's the eyebrow, the eye, and the eyebrow. Now, bonus tip I would like to also share, right? When you look on the reference image, right, I also see that there are lines as well that represent the veins. See? So the reason why I put it as bonus is that it's something very delicate, because you don't want to, since this is very light, you don't want to do anything that will be very, how do I say, would become too dark and too uneven, right? So if you want to still proceed, still proceed. Firstly, I mean, you can also decide to stop it right here. But if you want to proceed, similar to what you see on the image, firstly, you make sure that what you are replicating is very light, but also visible. Redrawing the veins. But you don't want it just a quick representation of what the veins would look like, right? So very light, subtle. Don't forget to go according to the flow of the eyeball. Right, something similar to this, nothing much. Right. Over here. Yeah, this is the eye that I replicated from the reference. If you want to take it even a step further, you can just give a nice shade of the skin around the eye. You just go on by the flow of the skin that I'm seeing on the image. Right, note that I'm going this way because that's what I'm seeing from the image, how the skin is going. Right. Best. Similarly, I'll just do the same. Now I'm going this way. Just making sure that the eyebrows is different from the skin I'm shading. And over here, right, I see that it's going this way, so I just do it that way too as well, to give you the 3D form. I'm sculpting, not just shading. So just need to make sure that as light as possible. You do exactly that. Right, over here, you have to make it something similar to this, right? Because that's what I'm seeing on the image. So I go by this flow. Don't just shade it like this, right? You are sculpting, you're not just shading. See, if you notice, created a form of a highlight over here. But here it's not very light, so I could shade, but just make sure it is also light. Just to meet up with how the skin is. Yeah. Right, the more you do it this way, the more it forms, right? Over here too, very light. So now it will make sense that this is meeting up with this side. All right, and over here too. Still going by the flow of the skin, but try not to make it unequal. Right, it goes all the way down, so I can do it that way too. Bring it all the way down. Going by the flow, sculpting it gently. See, like this, and like this. I want to give it a cylindrical, shape with cross hatching. Over here, try not to forget to make the shadow over here too as well. All right, and then also the meetup. I see that the image is going this way, so I'm trying it this way too as well with my cross hatch. Also trying to make sure that it does this way too as well. I also need to make sure that the eyebrow is visible so that you can see that this is the eyebrow. So I'm giving it one more layer, dark layer on top. Yeah. That's So yeah, there's a skin around the top layer of the eye. So yeah, that is the eye. If you have made it this far, give a huge pat on your back because you have drawn a realistic eye, right? And yeah, basically this everything you can see. Similar thing that I did over here, I could do same below too as well, right? Remembering going by the format of the skin, but for now we could we can definitely use this. So things to remember when drawing the eye. Huge advice: use grids, right? So if you are, especially when you are starting, you are starting drawing, use grids. Why? Because that will be a great way for you to easily put in points, right? Guide points or various features of the eye without guessworks. You don't have to guess about it and it also helps build your skills when it comes to proportions. Eventually, you would learn where to put features right at the right place without messing up. Right, so that's great. You start with that. Also start with your outline. It's a huge foundation to build your own drawing. Don't jump straight to shading. Start your foundation, your outline. Then after that, lightly, gently, take time to shade. Remember, when shading, you are not just shading. You are sculpting. You are building, right? And that takes patience. You've never seen a house that just appears immediately. Right, they take time to build it up, brick by brick, so that it won't collapse, especially when there are times when there are disasters going on, right? So similar on this, build it, take your time and do it because it takes a lot of patience. So if you feel like you don't have enough time, find some time so that you can slowly and gradually build up your work, and eventually you can draw anything, right? If you take your time to do so. So yeah, this is the eye. And thank you so much for joining in. Okay, there you go. Drawing better takes patience and practice. But with these steps, you are already on your way. If you've learned something new from this video, please like and comment down below or tag me in your drawings, right? I would love to see them. Also, don't forget to subscribe so that you not miss out on amazing contents like this. Take care and keep drawing.